How the So on this channel, I've started a series about Severin Films and their schizophrenic movie catalog. Well, today's video is actually an interesting one because this is the most out of place release Severin has ever done. When I mean it's out of place, it means like if you were gonna say, hey dude, here's this movie, which catalog, which boutique label do you think it would belong to? The absolute positively last company on planet Earth that I would think it would belong to is Severin Films. A place where Joe D'Amato has a home. A place with films made by Claudio Fragasso of the craziest, most whacked out, drug-fueled, nonsensical movies ever to exist, okay? I'm talking about a catalog of movies that Severin has that is somewhat illegal, bizarre movies. I mean, did you see 2020 Texas Gladiators? Did you see the video on that? Yeah, that is just scratching the surface on some of the crazy stuff that Severin puts out. But guess what? They put out an 80s classic. Now, when I heard about this, at first I didn't even believe it. Like, no way, that's not a Severin title. Until they had a sale a while back and I got it. How the fuck does Severin have the movie Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell? Can somebody explain this to me? It makes no sense. Overboard's an 80s classic. Everybody knows Overboard. Everybody's seen Overboard, right? Okay, just so if you're not aware, Overboard is an 80s movie about Goldie Hawn who gets amnesia after an accident, and Kurt Russell pretends to be her husband and brings her back home to live with her, where she raises his kids and everything. Now, Kurt's a single dad doing the best he can, but he needs help. So what he does is extremely illegal and kind of scary, so maybe this does belong with Severin now that I think about it. Only in the 80s can a movie premise like this be a comedy. This is the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Could you imagine if you got amnesia and some psycho decides to claim you and then gets away with it and you had to go live with them? But look at the back. Warm and funny. Warm and funny. It's just disturbing. Of course the movie plays out okay, and it's actually really funny. It's one of those movies that I remember being on TV literally all the time as a kid. I have this vivid image of seeing Kurt Russell in that denim coveralls with that plaid shirt on just falling from the sky with the most happiest shit-eating grin you could ever imagine. Kurt Russell is a guy that I think everybody just kind of loves. I mean, if you love 80s movies, odds are Kurt Russell has a movie in there or two that you'd love to talk about. And Kurt Russell has a pretty vast catalog, doing stuff with John Carpenter like The Thing, Escape from New York, but his most daring film has to be the movie Overboard. I mean, he literally captures a woman who had amnesia. I'm just baffled by this. Like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Severin Films, did you go after Overboard? Did you say, we need this for our catalog? Or did it just fall into your lap? I can't imagine that, Shout Factory wouldn't have wanted this movie. I mean, it's Overboard. This is a classic. This is a movie from the 80s that I think every kid grew up watching. Somehow this film escaped Scream Factory, escaped Kino Lorber. I mean, Severin? Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I mean, it's kind of interesting the fact that this is a Severin title. It's so funny seeing this 80s classic on the back with that woman's hair and the Severin logo on there. And it's a good looking release. I mean, I feel like this is a title that like everybody needs to have in their Severin collection because it truly is the odd duck. It's the only mainstream movie in their catalog. I mean, the more prominent things they have are still movies that are cult by nature like Cemetery Man and Opera. But somehow, some way or another, Severin got their hands on fucking Overboard. Somebody explain this to me. I'm convinced that there's something else about this movie that just made it untouchable, that no other studio wanted to get their hands on it. Why Severin? I'm at a loss for words. The interesting thing is they actually did their own scan for this. This is a 2K scan of the movie. So not only did they get the license to put the movie out, but Severin somehow was like, hey, we're going to do a new scan for Overboard. This is just one of the biggest mysteries, guys. If you haven't seen Overboard at all for some reason, I won't make fun because, of course, there's still movies that I need to see that I haven't seen. This one still works because it's so entertaining and just charming and rewatchable. But I remember watching this with my wife not long ago, and we both said to ourselves, wouldn't this be the scariest thing to ever happen to you? Imagine losing your memory and a crazy bastard takes you into custody, tricks the hospital, tricks the police, and then makes you think you're married to him. Somebody's gonna make a horror movie about Overboard. Overboard needs to get remade. Overboard needs to get remade as a horror film because it's truly the scariest plot I've ever heard of. So at the end of the day, guys, Severin has some crazy-ass movies. Movies about 2020 Texas gladiators, movies about crazy witches, movies about extraterrestrial alien ripoffs of E.T. But the strangest thing that they have in their collection, the most out-there movie in their collection that makes no sense, is the movie Overboard. Make sure it's in your collection. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.